and players smiling.
But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by PrizePicks and the Game Time app.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Big Three NBA podcast. I am Kwani Lunis, joined by Sherrod Blakely, Gary Washburn. Off the top, we have to start with a moment to remember an NBA legend. Dikembe Mutombo passed away this past week. And I want to just get both of your thoughts. I'm sure you've had some kind of encounters with him, but overall, just his meaning to the league itself.
Dikembe was just a larger-than-life figure on so many levels. You will be hard-pressed to find anyone that has anything negative to say about him, other than them cats that tried to score him at the rim and he pinned their stuff on the glass. They weren't real happy about him when he was playing. But as the thing about Dikembe that I will take away is that as incredibly dominant and personable he was on the court, and when you had a chance to talk to him, he was a better man. I think when you have the title of like global ambassador for a league, it says a lot about how you're viewed, not only by among the players that you played with and against, but just the global community. I mean, Dikembe was a larger than life figure, not just because of what he did in the basketball court, 4-time defensive player of the year, but because of the lives that he changed off the court. He's someone that will not be forgotten about anytime soon because he left such an indelible imprint for so many players, for so many people outside of basketball, and certainly for those of us in the media who had the honor and pleasure of spending a little bit of time with him while he was in the NBA.
Yeah, just a cultural icon. Obviously, if you say you got Mutombo, you know exactly, people know what you're meaning. Oh, I applied for that job, I got Mutombo'd, or I did this and I got Mutombo'd. Like, you know that you got rejected. I tried to talk to this lady, she Mutombo'd me. Like, you just know that's the meaning of rejection. And
Gary, let's come on, let's keep it moving.
No, really back in.
No. I mean,
just like Gary went back into the time machine. They're like,
just an amazing guy in terms of his presence. Just a presence. You see him, and just kind of the voice, and obviously a great player, great defensive player, the great defensive players of all time. Like Sherrod said, and not only being an ambassador, but just helping out, like opening up a hospital in the Congo, his native land, and kind of reaching out and continuing and basically strengthening that bond between the U.S. and Africa, and also the NBA and Africa, just walking around and just being that legend. Like, you know, he gave all he could in his career in terms of on the floor, 18-year career. A guy played a long time, many teams, and always had that kind of that presence about him. You didn't want to challenge him at the rim, but just a man of just a giant man off the floor, like everybody says, and just kind of one of those guys that never had a bad day. You know, just a friendly guy, the big laugh, the voice. You know, got his due and got inducted to the Hall of Fame. You know, just a guy who was a gem of a man, and it's just sad. 58's just far too young to go, and he's somebody that we all, you know, remember from Georgetown. So we you know, if you're you know, a certain age, you've seen his entire career for when he started at Georgetown in the late 80s and played with Alonzo Mourning and was like the next that line of great centers that they had at Georgetown, and then getting to the league, going to Denver and then Atlanta, and his numbers retired with the Atlanta Hawks, obviously number 55, and you know, helping the Sixers to get to the finals in 01. And just, like I said, just a person who was a gold, just a heart of gold, would help anybody, would laugh and joke with anybody, comfortable in his own skin, and knew, you know, his role. No. I mean, just knew that. And it was fun, and it's a terrible loss for the league, a terrible loss for the world in terms of how we strengthen our knowledge of, like, let's say, the motherland, Africa, and just what he tried to do in that country, in his home country of Congo, and also in the continent, and to strengthen not only basketball but just change lives.
And I'm sure we'll see more tributes to him throughout the rest of this NBA season and beyond. So again, rest in peace to Mutombo, and of course, condolences to his close family as well. But looking ahead to the Celtics, they actually had a chance to have their first full week of practice. What were your impressions? They're now in Abu Dhabi. For those who don't know, they're already on the other side of the world practicing. But let's just talk about the first week of practice. What did you guys take from what we've seen so far?
What you got, Gary?
I mean, basically nothing but positives. I mean, Missoula is giving them, implementing plans, a difficult camp, physical camp, long practices. They went, I think a couple days ago, they went 3 before they left it for Abu Dhabi.
Say that 3 times.
Abu Dhabi.
He likes the body.
3 hours. They practiced for 3 hours. He's getting them prepared. And I just think the guys are coming out like, this is what we needed. We didn't want no light practice. We didn't want a bunch of high fives and, oh, you guys are great. You're champions. No problems. Do your thing. No. They know, hey, we have to play and put our games to another level and get prepared because this season, this onslaught is going to be even more difficult than 23-24. And so I came away just the positive impressions. Everybody says this is a tough camp, which is good when the players are like, hey, this is tough. That's what you want. And I think the players desire that. They desire to be pushed. And I just think the so far, so good. Everybody's came into camp in shape, a good vibe about this camp. And I think Lonnie Walker is a guy who we talked to this week and who seems to be blending in well. Obviously, he knew former teammates with Derek White in San Antonio, worked out in summers with Drew Holiday. So a guy who could blend in very well for this team. And it just seems like there's a real positive vibe with this team before it left, obviously, for Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi. The thing I like about this particular camp is that if you're kind of reading between the lines and listen to what they're saying, they have embraced the grind that they're going to have to go through in order to be champions again. It's one thing to have won a title and know what that is like. It's a completely different thing to replicate that. And they understand that the only way that they're going to able to replicate winning another title is you're going to have to grind even harder. It's going to be so much harder. When you talk to players who've won championships and they reflect upon the season after, everything was harder. Teams play you harder. They cut harder. They attack the rim harder. Everyone that you face does everything at a higher level more consistently because you are not just a team they want to beat. You're the standard that they're playing every night. And you have to embrace that challenge if you're the Celtics. And I give Joe Mazzulla a lot of credit. He's not allowing these guys to get comfortable. He's not allowing them to rest on the fact that they are champions, the fact that they know what this journey that they are embarking on now looks like. They know that it's not going to be smooth sailing, but they're not using that institutional knowledge at this point to just and as far as how they're approaching the season. They're coming at the season as if we haven't won a damn thing. Let's go get it. Let's start building this thing up so that once the season starts and once we get into the mix of things, we are not going to treat this as if this is like the sequel to the championship run. We're treating this as if we're hitting the ground from nothing. And everyone that we're fighting, that we're battling, those are the teams. They're not trying to take a title from us. They're trying to win a championship just like we are. That's a different kind of mindset that most NBA champions do not have. Most view that second season as a defense, as if they are basically, rather than being proactive and going out and getting a championship, they're more reactive to trying to defend one. And the Celtics, they seem to embrace the idea that, no, this is not a title defense. This is just trying to stack another chip on top of the one that we got. And I think it's the right attitude for this team because when you look at the players that they have, and we've talked about this before, and we'll certainly talk about it more this season, they got guys with legitimate chips on their shoulder. The kind of chips that most NBA champions usually have to artificially inflate and create. They got legitimate beef with folks. Not this prepackaged this is legitimate beef. And that to me is what separates them from a lot of defending champions. And I think it's what's going to allow them to be the last team standing once again.
We'll get more into Abu Dhabi and the Celtics in just a second. But we do have to address the biggest trade, the news drop of the week. The Minnesota Timberwolves sending Karl-Anthony Towns to New York City in exchange for Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo, who there were reports whether or not he wanted to be in New York already. But the biggest story is the fact that Cat is going to New York. And of course, that affects the Celtics because they're in the East. Well, they're one of their more bigger competitors in the East. But what do you guys think this means for the Knicks? And does this affect the chances of the Celtics, getting to the playoffs?
Well, I think for the Celtics, they are clearly the best team in the NBA. I mean, not just because they won a championship, but we just look at the way their roster is constructed. There is no team that you can look at and say, yep, on paper, they're better than the Celtics. Not happening. So for New York, the battle is really on who's the next best team besides the Celtics. And so I think, in many respects, I just kind of put the Celtics on one shelf and look at the Knicks relative to everyone else. And I think this move puts them at worst, it puts them on the same level as a team like the Philadelphia 76ers. And I would say I'd probably lean a little bit more towards New York over Philly, only because Joel Embiid is going to do what Joel Embiid does. But when you add a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns, to me, he addresses one of the few weaknesses in Joel Embiid's game. Joel is not very good at stepping out on stretch bigs. We saw that with Porzingis. You're going to see that with Cat. That's an area that is one of the few areas of Joel Embiid's that teams have the potential to exploit if you have the right personnel to do that. They have that now with Karl-Anthony Towns. But, the one thing about Karl-Anthony Towns that we've seen throughout his career is that, 1 minute he's Karl-Anthony Towns, another minute he's Cat. And he's cat-like, nice and soft and cuddly and unable to give you any kind of toughness that you need to win at the highest of levels. And so which one of those will the Knicks get when it gets crunch time, when it gets to the playoffs? They got a lot of dogs on that team. When you look at, you look at their point guard, you look at OG Anunoby, you look at that roster. Bridges is another guy. They've got some legitimate dogs on that team. And Cat needs to learn from them, needs to be more like them in that regard if the Knicks are going to be able to do what so many people don't think they can do, which is knock off the Celtics. But for them, in their space, I think they're better than Philadelphia right now because I do think they match up better than Philadelphia. And I think from top to bottom, talent-wise, I think they can compete at a slightly higher level than Philadelphia can.
The cat dog reference tickled me.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
That was brilliant. Anyway,
Yes.
I think the Knicks are a different team. And when you trade Julius Randle and you trade Donte DiVincenzo, two tough guys, two guys that quite honestly get it done and and the Celtics never really had anybody to match up with Randle. Like Randle, a physical dude, take your lunch money kind of guy, physical in the paint, can stretch out, shoot the three. I always thought he was kind of the key to the Knicks. Now, Brunson is a great player, and he's kind of become that A1 guy. But I always thought maybe when Randle gets it right, gets healthy, man, they're going to be dangerous. Karl-Anthony Towns is a player that I like. I think he has a skill set, but he's been a finesse player over the years, especially with the presence of Rudy Gobert in Minnesota. And I looked up his numbers. He was a guy who was getting like 25 and 12 in his early career. Last year, he averaged 8 rebounds. Like, that's not enough. And you're going to be the legitimate center because Mitchell Robinson is hurt. Isaiah Hartenstein's gone to Oklahoma City. So this is a team, quite honestly, that needs a big and needs a dude to pull down some rebounds. Now, you can rely on Bridges. You can rely on Josh Hart. You can rely on Anunoby to get some rebounds and those type of things. But Cat's going to have to be a little bit more physical. He's going to be he's going to be a tough guy, a tougher. No more just stretching. Oh, I'm going to shoot threes. Like, I think he has very much become consumed with I'm the best shooting big man ever. And that's great. That's great. Career 39% three-point shooter. So he's backed it up. But, he's got to get it done in the paint too, get to the free throw line, get on the post, and become a big man too. And I think that's what the Knicks are going to ask him to do because you got Anunoby as your 4, you got Bridges as your 3, and now probably Josh Hart slides in along with Brunson. And if you're probably trying to figure out a starting lineup in New York. And, but I give Philly the edge because Philly is just so deep. if you're looking at some of the guys that they acquired, remember, you got Kelly Oubre that they brought back, Kyle Lowry, for his 19th year, but you also have Reggie Jackson, Eric Gordon, and Caleb Martin, 3 guys who can play significant roles on teams. So I think the Sixers probably have the depth. The Knicks lost depth because you traded your top 3-point shooter and your toughest player for a guy who is good, very talented, but has never done it on the big stage. Remember, he did not have a good series against Dallas last year. Short shot 37% from the field, 24% from 3 in that Dallas series. That was not his best basketball. He's got something to prove. And we'll see if he does it in New York on the big stage, the big lights. The Towns of the Knicks have been kind of bonded together and rumors for years that he was coming to the Knicks. And now, okay, he gets his shot. The Knicks haven't won a title since 1973, 51 years. So is this their best team in that sense in the 50 years? Maybe more is talented. But to me, it all depends. It's a lot on Karl-Anthony Towns because where are your other bigs? Jericho Sims, like Mitch Robinson's hurt. Like he's going to need to fill that void as the big and not just sit out there shoot threes.
Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. This week on Prize Picks, I'm looking at the football board and selecting Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards and Patrick Mahomes for less than 267.5 passing yards. Tyreek Hill is another one that I'm keeping an eye on, and I have him more than 97.5 receiving yards, and Saquon Barkley for some more than 67.5 rushing yards. I'm definitely going to go more. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
And that's the thing about, adding him, though, to the mix, though. Like, if he puts up big numbers, it won't be a breakout season. It'll be like, this is what you're supposed to do type of season. And I think for the Knicks, that's what made this deal so attractive. They have lots of physical, grimy, tough guys. They have plenty of those. But do they have a guy that can actually make a significant impact as a scorer who's not named Jalen Brunson? OG Anunoby puts up decent numbers, but he's kind of hit or miss. I mean, he can get you 31 night, 10 next. But do they have a guy that has the potential and talent and has shown that throughout their time in the NBA to be a mid to high 20-point scorer? And they're getting that with this trade. But to your point, Gary, is he going to man up when he needs to? Is he going to be that physical presence that they're going to need? Because at some point, you're right, they're going to need him to be a physical, grimy, get me 10, 12 rebounds in the playoffs against this team because they are attacking us at will. We need someone to protect that paint. We need someone to get those loose balls. Can he be that player? To me, it's not a question of whether he has a talent to do that. It's whether his temperament will allow him to be an impact player when his team needs it the most. And to me, the relationship I'm going to be watching closely if I'm the Knicks is the relationship between him and Jalen Brunson. Brunson's toughness is not questioned. No one is going to question that dude if he's that dude. Is he going to get in Karl's face? Is he going to get in Karl-Anthony Towns' face when Karl is acting more like a cat than Karl-Anthony Towns the baller? Because when they have that moment, and they're going to have it, there is no doubt about it, there's going to be that moment where Karl-Anthony Towns is going to be playing soft, and Brunson is going to have to make a decision. Am I going to exert my leadership in this moment, or am I just going to kind of let him figure this thing out, knowing damn well he's been in the league for damn near a decade and ain't figured it out? Jalen Brunson's leadership is going to be just as important as Karl-Anthony Towns' temperament if this thing is going to work for the Knicks. Because the talent is there. They are right in the mix. If you talk about the top 3, 4, 5 teams in the NBA to win a championship, the Knicks are in that mix. But Karl-Anthony Towns has become the ultimate wild card in the chase for the Larry O'Brien Trophy now.
So as it stands right now, do you still see the Knicks as the number 2 seed in the East? On paper, of course.
I do. Gary might feel differently, but I think the Knicks are number 2. And I put a lot of that on 2 things. One, I think Jalen Brunson is – when I look at Philadelphia and I look at New York, Jalen Brunson is probably going to be one of the top 2 or 3 players. I look at what Joel Embiid can do, and Karl-Anthony Towns at his best or pretty close to his best, he's not going to shut down Joel, but he makes Joel work a lot harder than Joel is used to working in the East. And so that's the main reason why I give the Knicks a slight edge, because I think that the Sixers' best player is going to have to work so much harder now than he's used to. And the Knicks, even if Karl-Anthony Towns is not playing at a significantly high level, they still got enough talent around him now to where a slightly below superstar Karl-Anthony Towns is still good enough for the Knicks to be better than Philly, I think, in a best of 7.
Yeah, I take Philly slightly with their depth. Well, I said we did mention Paul George. Obviously, him, Maxey, and Embiid, that big 3. And now you got, I said, the guys I mentioned, Oubre, who's found a home in Philadelphia. You're talking about Eric Gordon, talking about Reggie Jackson, guys who have been other places and can come off the bench. And Caleb Martin, a guy who obviously the Celtics know a lot about him over the years, and he signed obviously with Philly. So I think, and then you got guys like KJ Martin, they got a lot of depth. And the Knicks, it's just hard to trust a Thibodeau team in terms of, are they going to make it through the season? He's going to work them too hard. And this is not a team that's super, super deep. I mean, Campaign, the guy, they brought him over, Precious Achua, Landry Shamet, guys that are okay. But, I mean, they don't have a deep bench. They have all their money in their starters. And so we all know that Tibbs teams tend to tire out at the end because he's working them, playing them 40-plus minutes, these heavy practices. We'll see how that goes. There's something about the Knicks I just don't think is quite there, but I still pick them as a 3rd, and they could challenge the Celtics for sure.
I would have felt better about the Knicks if they didn't have to get rid of DiVincenzo. That was to me, I don't know if the deal would have got done if he wasn't included, because you knew the Knicks did not want to do that. You knew they would have been like.
If he truly wasn't unhappy, if he truly was unhappy, then it does make sense for the sake of your locker room too. Yeah, again, they're conflicting reports, but it's
hard for me to imagine he would be unhappy when you're playing with your boys from college and you're starting.
That's fair. That's why it didn't really make sense. But
I don't get that.
Maybe that. Honestly, it could be definitely Knicks PR. There's spin on it.
Yeah.
To avoid that kind of controversy.
Right.
Yeah.
Facts.
All right. Back to the Celtics very quickly. Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi.
The last 2 NBA champs playing against each other. Denver is also there as well. Obviously, this is an opportunity when you think big picture for the league to expand its reach. The NBA is global, right? But of course, being in Abu Dhabi, that potentially opens up to new investors, new people that could be interested in the game. But specifically for basketball fans here in the U.S., what's at stake when it comes to us consuming that game?
You got it, Gary.
I think the NBA is great to go globally. The preseason games, I know they got the games in Paris during the season. The question is, where is this going to lead to, right? Can you have an NBA team in Paris or Rome? Could you have a separate league over there? Could you have that's the thing. I don't know with the travel, with a 6-hour flight, could you have one team in Paris? I just think right now you're going to expand to 32 teams. I think you're very good at 32. I don't think the league needs any more than 32 teams. We don't need no 36-team league. 32 is fine. But what are you doing with the bond? Can you create, let's say, a series between the EuroLeague champ and the NBA champ? Can you do that? Can you bond? I know that the important thing I thought over the last couple of weeks, kind of a development, was the NBA and FIBA are starting to meet and have more talks about collaboration. And obviously FIBA, there's FIBA rules, as we know. You can knock the ball off the rim after there's kind of goaltending. The three-point line is closer. There's certain rules. The ball obviously looks different. It's a multicolored ball. But they're kind of collaborating. And can the NBA and FIBA come together to maybe make this more of a global game in terms of like having the NBA champions, but or can you bring a team over here? Like, there's going to be teams from New Zealand, and because the EuroLeague season is starting, them dudes ain't coming over here and playing no exhibition games over their money's on the line. So you're going to have teams from Australia, New Zealand, or whatever, London. So I think that it's cool to go to places overseas. I think this, how much will it do for the game? How much will the ratings, the game is coming on. I think the first game is like noon, because I think it's a 8-hour difference or something like that. So the game is coming on noon on Friday on NBA TV. Like, are people really going to watch that Friday afternoon when you got baseball playoffs?
At work too.
Baseball playoffs going on. There's other preseason games, I think, showing that. I think the Lakers play that night in prime time. So the question is, I think it's good for the players, good for the teams to bond. But for the league, we don't know where this is going, because unless you got a spaceship or you look Jetsons and look that up, you know what the Jetsons is. You ain't getting no team in Paris or Rome and having every, where they have 7-hour flights to road games. That's not happening. It's just the travel. It's like putting a team in Hawaii. Like, good luck with that. It sounds great. And, now flights are faster and all that, but that's a heavy load on travel.
It is. And that's why I think the NBA, I think their approach is really this simple. We know where the bread and butter is of our fan base, but we try to get some side dishes to add to the meal as well. That's why you go to somewhere like, Abu Dhabi. That's why you go to Paris. That's why you go to London, because you know that you're never going to establish a league there. You're never going to establish a team there for all the reasons you mentioned, Gary. I think travel is probably the number one or number two reason why you won't do that. But that doesn't stop you from developing a fan base in those parts of the world. Because last I checked, Amazon still delivers jerseys to Abu Dhabi, and FedEx still delivers things to London and Paris. So you can still develop your fan base by simply giving them a little taste of what NBA basketball is like. And your players are cool with that because they're doing it in the preseason when the games don't count. So it winds up being a win-win for your players. They get to see a part of the world that they otherwise wouldn't do, and the potential to extend their own individual brands, their own individual bases. And the league wins because now all of a sudden you're exposing your product to a part of the world that otherwise would not be able to see that, or they would have to travel thousands of miles to one of the coasts, either the East Coast or West Coast, to watch an NBA game. So it makes a lot of sense for everyone involved. But the one area that you never hear much talk about is just some of these countries that they go to have some I guess the best way to put it, they've got some civil rights issues in play. They've got some kind of social unrest where the rules of law in that particular country are very different than they are in the United States. And it's one of those things that you don't really hear the league talk about, which is understandably. Yeah. These governments are not run the way the U.S. is. Citizens don't have the same freedoms and liberties that we are accustomed to and used to, which is why in a lot of these countries, you're going to see players, you're going to see, people along with the organization, but you ain't going to see much family because family is they're not players, they're family, and that makes them just people who are visiting, and visitors are treated differently in some of these countries than visitors who come to the United States. And so those are some of the issues that the NBA doesn't address, which again, their focus is on building the base. Their focus is on expanding, their product into lands and places and spaces that otherwise would not have an opportunity. And I understand that. But for me, someone who watches a lot of NBA and who pays attention to what the hell is happening in other parts of the world, that's one of the first things I want to find out more about. How does this particular city align itself from its treatment of its citizens, of its treatment of the press, with how the U.S. does? And if there's a stark contrast, does that make it something that you shouldn't do, or does it make it something that you look past, which the NBA does? How do you address that? How do you deal with that? And again, I look at guys like Jaylen Brown, who is very thoughtful, who has a very high level of social consciousness and social awareness. You better believe he knows that he's in a place that's very different than the United States. If he's not asked about that stuff, he's not going to talk about it. But if he is asked about it, I think he would absolutely point out some of the distinctions and be real about that. But again, those are some of the storylines, some of the conversations that you're not going to hear because, frankly, the media in that part of the country, they don't care about that. Yes. And the media, they're not going to ask about that. They're just happy to be in Abu Dhabi.
Summertime is winding down, but the college football season will be in full swing before you know it. There's no better way to get your college football fix than Game Time, which is where you can find the best deals on college football game tickets, concerts, NFL, WNBA, and so much more. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff, so show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The one college football game I'm looking forward to seeing this year is when my alma mater, Syracuse University, comes to my neck of the woods and takes on the Boston College Eagles. There's a great selection of seats starting as low as, get this, folks, $3. That's right. $3 can get you in the building. Having the map of the stadium along with the different color-coded prices makes it super easy to find the best seats for your budget and not have to scramble all over the place on your app to do so. And you're covered by Game Time's lowest price guarantee, where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
So which they should, because to your point, the first thing I thought of when I saw the video from the Celtics account of the players getting off the bus was I naturally noticed that there were spouses of some of, or girlfriends of some of the players there. Al Horford's wife, I saw her in one of the videos, and I know we know for a fact that Abu Dhabi is a very conservative city. You have to dress a certain way, specifically as a woman there. So I wonder if, obviously I don't want to speculate, but what is there a double standard right now of anyone that's here visiting with the NBA will treat you differently, or are these women being subjected to the rules and the laws of the country that they're in? And that alone is something that needs to be addressed, because to your point, yes, the players are there. All of them are men, but there are female staffers, there are female family members. There are so many women involved in the league that the NBA should be at least taking that into consideration. How are your female employees, the women that are connected to this league, being treated, and how are they able to even be, explore a city like that?
And it's always a slippery slope too, because it's like there's a part of you that want to respect the rules and regulations of the land that you're in, but at the same time, there's a certain amount of self-respect and dignity that you're used to having that now all of a sudden you're supposed to suppress that because you're in a country that doesn't recognize the value in allowing its citizens to have certain liberties and freedoms that the country that you live in, that you've grown up in, that you're free to. Yeah, right. Yeah. And so I always find it interesting just looking at some of the kind of the non on the court stories that really should be addressed in some capacity. Even you don't have to spend every damn waking moment talking about it, but at least acknowledge the fact that this is a little bit different than going to Charlotte on a Tuesday.
Well done. Well done. Well, we will see how that game.
Well done.
Huh?
Speaking of well done, it sounds like we're done, Kwani.
That was not the most smooth transition, but Sherrod, you could work on that. At least mine are funny when I do it.
That's what we tell you, yeah.
I think the audience would agree. If not, I'm just delusional. Who cares? But that's all we have for this episode. Gary, it's not too late for you to get to Abu Dhabi to ask all these societal questions. Or you can hop on a Zoom, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll ask when they get back.
Okay, that's perfect.
Speaking of Gary, shout out to Gary.
Yes.
Set it up, Kwani.
Congratulations to our own Gary Washburn, whose book is officially out. Sherrod and I had the honor of listening to him talk about it at WBUR's City Space, going into depth about how he decided what ended up in the book. If you haven't heard him talk about it already, he starts at the beginning of the Celtics franchise to present day when they won Banner 18. So if you haven't gotten the book already, go to Amazon, go to your favorite bookstore, order it. We got to get it signed. I've even worked.
The only issue I had with Gary's book was there was no mention of Vitor Favorani in there.
Sherrod's buddy, or Michael Petrus. My bad. I gotta apologize for that one.
It was hard narrowing down.
No Vitor Favorani. Yeah.
What was it? 170.
God bless him. No Fab Mello either. I'm sorry.
Oh, damn.
It was 178 moments, correct?
It was
75.
175 moments. Yeah.
From Celtics history. So, of course, it's hard to narrow down.
Tried to touch on every part of every era, from obviously the very beginning, how the Celtics were formed, all the way through the 60s. So if you're looking for more of a history lesson, who is this guy? Never heard of him. Or, I didn't know he played with the Celtics. Or I want to know more about those 60 titles that we all kind of lump into, like, they're all just Bill Russell just blocking shots. Like, they just beat the hell out of everybody. Like, there's some real fascinating stories on how they won all those championships and a lot of close calls, a lot of clutch plays that I learned about during the research of the book. So if you're a Celtic fan, or your father or mother or anybody, or if you want to give for a young guy, young gal to learn the history, I must say, like, I'm not patting myself on the back, but it's a good book because it was 175 different moments. So you get to kind of go through the eras and reminisce some.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about your book, Gary, and you know I don't like any book just to be liking a book, but the thing I liked about Gary's book is that for folks in Boston who deal with the fact that, the city of Boston is racist and the Celtics are racist, make sure you get a clear distinction between the city and the team. Because when you talk about race relations and you talk about the Boston Celtics, check your history books. Check out this book, because this book lays out a clear, definitive distinction between the city and the organization. They are not the same. They never have been the same. The Celtics have been one of the at the forefront of diversity when it comes to the NBA. So when I've had this conversation with folks and they give me like the side, like, what you talking about, Willis? I tell them, do your history, check your history books. And this book really, I thought did a good job of just explaining and laying out how, from a historical standpoint, the Celtics, when it comes to race relations, was far in a way one of, if not the most influential franchise of all the NBA teams. So well done, Gary Washburn. That's what I'm talking about.
Well done. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but the holiday seasons are approaching before you know it. So this is the perfect time to start buying gifts. And again, like you said, an NBA fan, a Celtics fan, I'm pretty sure they'll appreciate it. So again, congrats, Gary.
Thank you.
Exactly. Well done.
Okay. Well, that's all we have for this week. Make sure you catch that game on Friday at noon if you don't have work, or just stream, I guess, the Celtics. But we'll be back next week to recap that game and, of course, continue to talk about what we're looking forward to from this regular season. For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis. This is a Big 3 NBA podcast, and we thank you for listening.